Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are diving into the legal world's version of a giant red stop sign, a court order so powerful it can stop an action dead in its tracks, sometimes before any harm is even done. It's called an injunction, and we're going to break down exactly how it works.
I mean, think about it. Imagine your neighbor is about to build something that would totally block your light, or a company is about to publish information that should be private. Do you really have to wait for the damage to happen before you can do anything? That is the exact question we're digging into today.
Well, the good news is the law has a proactive solution for situations just like that. It's called preventative relief. See, this isn't about getting money to compensate you for damage later. It's about putting up a legal shield to stop that damage from ever happening in the first place. And the number one tool for putting up that shield is a court order called an injunction. It really is like that legal stop sign we talked about. It's basically a court-ordered pause button that tells someone, hey, either you do this or, more often, you stop doing that right now. Okay, so to really wrap our heads around this, here's our game plan. We're going to walk through what these things are, the different types you might see, how a court actually decides whether to grant one, and, really importantly, the specific rules for when they can and cannot be used. The whole idea is pretty straightforward, right? Stop the wrong before it happens. This isn't just a nice thought. It's actually written into India's Specific Relief Act of 1963, and it's based on a really fundamental truth. Some types of harm just can't be undone with a check. But, these legal stop signs are not one size fits all. The law is smart about this. It provides different kinds of injunctions for different situations, and they mainly fall into two big categories: temporary and perpetual. So on one side, you've got the temporary injunction. This is like the emergency pause button. It's used during a lawsuit to just freeze everything and keep things from getting worse. On the other side, you have the perpetual or permanent injunction. This is the final word, the permanent stop sign that gets issued only after the whole case has been decided. And then there's this third type, which is super powerful and pretty fascinating. It's called a mandatory injunction. See, while most injunctions tell someone to stop doing something, this one actually tells them to do something. It's a court order compelling a positive action, like, say, tearing down a wall that was built illegally. Okay, so this is the big question. How does a court even decide whether to hit that temporary pause button? It's definitely not automatic. To make that call, the court uses a really important and well-known three-point test. So to get this powerful order, you can't just ask for it. You have to convince the judge by clearing three specific hurdles. The court is going to look for a strong initial case, check for the risk of serious, irreversible harm, and then weigh the overall fairness for everyone involved. Let's break down each of those. First up is what lawyers call a prima facie case. In plain English, that just means you have to show the court right at the beginning that you have a real, arguable case. You don't have to prove you're going to win, not yet, but you do have to show that your claim isn't just baseless, that there's a serious question here that needs to be explored. Second, you have to prove there's a risk of irreparable injury. This is key. It means the harm you're facing is something that money just can't fix. You can't put a price on a one-of-a-kind piece of art being destroyed or a company's biggest trade secret getting out. That's the kind of damage the court is trying to prevent here. And finally, the court weighs the balance of convenience, which is really just a fancy legal term for fairness. The judge basically puts the potential harm to both sides on a scale. Who's going to suffer more? The plaintiff if the injunction is denied, or the defendant if it's granted? The court tries to find the path that causes the least amount of trouble for everyone while the case gets sorted out. So, let's say that three-point test is met for a temporary hold. What about the big one, the permanent injunction? When does the law say a court can issue one of those for good? Yeah, permanent injunctions are really saved for situations where no other legal solution is good enough. This happens when the harm can't possibly be measured in money, or maybe when someone is abusing a position of trust. Or it could be the only way to stop a person from filing the same pointless lawsuit over and over again. Now, this is super important. Getting an injunction is never, ever a guarantee. The law is very clear that there are boundaries. In fact, the Specific Relief Act actually lists out specific situations where a court will refuse to grant one. Right, so there are some clear lines the courts just won't cross. For example, you can't get an injunction to mess with an ongoing criminal case. And here's a big one. If you've just been sitting there quietly watching a problem get worse without saying anything, you usually can't come back later and ask the court to step in. They also can't be used to halt major public works like an infrastructure project. So if you take away just one thing today, let it be this. Getting an injunction is never an automatic right. It's a discretionary power. What that means is the court isn't just checking boxes. It's looking at the unique facts of every single case, the behavior of everyone involved, and the basic principles of fairness to make a decision.
And all of this leaves us with a pretty big question about the role of injunctions in our legal system. Is this a tool that can be used to unfairly tip the scales and stop progress? Or is it actually the essential shield that keeps the scales of justice from breaking entirely by protecting our rights before they're gone for good? It's a powerful tool, and as we've seen, one that has to be used with a lot of wisdom and a lot of care.